indicates the resulting magnetic field. As stated before, when high ampere current is passed over a magnet in a vacuum, temporary particles are produced. However, instead of having a single stream of particles being repelled from the center of this magnet, you have more cup-shaped magnets located around the first magnet, which creates additional magnetic fields that cause multiple streams of particles. When you position many more smaller magnets around the previous ones, you are able to create a whole field of temporary particles, which are depicted here as degenerating in size. This process also occurs on the other side of the magnetron in order to double the particle field size and to counteract the repelling magnetic forces involved.
We could go on for hours discussing all of the incredibly advanced technologies that the crop circle makers have decided to share with all of us, but I would like to turn our attention now to a couple of formations that shocked the world in 2001. They were discovered in a wheat field next to a radio telescope at Churbolton near Warewell in Hampshire County, England.
First, this was discovered on August 14th of 2001. It was a crop circle formation that measured about 100 feet wide and 120 feet long. It was composed of about 200 circles of varying sizes that appeared to have formed a rendering of a face. When this pictogram is blurred so that the features are blended together, a clear image of a face appears. Some obvious questions come to mind. Does this depict the face of humanity? Is this the face of an alien species? Whose face is it, and what does it mean for mankind? Not only does this glyph represent a major advancement in the complexity and sophistication than any formation discovered before it, but the very location of this pictogram is also very interesting. There is an ancient global grid connection that mathematically links the location of this face to the Cydonia region on Mars and to the facial formation that has been discovered there. According to Zachariah Sitchin, an eminent scholar and author who has translated ancient Sumerian texts, the deposed king of another planet known as Nibiru, who was the first to set foot on Earth, died on Mars. As a monument to him, his face was carved out of a mountain there. I believe that this face on Mars and the face in this formation are of Alalu, the past king of the planet Nibiru and discoverer of the planet Earth long before the existence of humanity. Just 5 days after the discovery of the facial formation in this field across from the giant telescope at Churbolton, this formation appeared on August 19th of 2001. It is 75 feet wide and 120 feet long. A distinguished researcher by the name of Richard C. Hoagland quickly realized that this formation looked very similar to this message that was sent out into space back in November of 1974. Dr. Carl Sagan and Sir Francis Drake created this message as part of the project for the search of extraterrestrial intelligence. It was transmitted with 2 trillion watts of radiated energy from the Arecibo radio telescope in Puerto Rico. The message was sent in a very narrow beam towards a galactic cluster known as M13, which is 65 million light-years away. It was a pictogram arranged in a matrix of 23 pixels by 73 pixels. This is the official explanation of that message. It was intended to describe our numbering system, the building blocks and formulas for DNA, a double helix symbol of DNA, a figure of a human being, our solar system, and a diagram of the radio telescope that sent the message. In order to fully understand the message, it is necessary to examine how numbers were represented. This is the pattern from the top of the message with grid lines added to make it easier to see each dot and space. Each column of dots and spaces represents a number from 1 to 10. This is the basic computer numbering system that works with ones and zeros, or in this case, with dots and spaces. But this system needs a starting point. That's what this row of dots represents. The ones and zeros up here relate to the dots and spaces here. Notice that there is a dot and two spaces in this first column above the starting dot. This is represented by a 1 and 2 zeros up here. Likewise, there is a 0, 1, 0 here that relate to the space, dot, space here, and so on. To interpret what the ones and zeros mean, we begin with the bottom digit. 0 digits have no value. However, a 1 digit in this row has a value of 1. A 1 digit in the next row up has a value of 2, which is twice the value as the lower row. Likewise, a 1 in this row has a value that is twice that of the next lower row, or 4. If there were any 1s in this row, they would have a value of 8. In order to determine the decimal number that a column of dots represent, you simply add the values of all of the 1 digits in that column. For instance, there is only a single 1 digit in this column, and it has a value of 1, so the total number is 1. This column also has only a single 1 digit, but it has a value of 2, so the total number is 2. In this column, there are 2 of the 1 digits. This one has a value of 1, and this one has a value of 2. So you add the values of 1 and 2 together, and you get the total number of 3. This column only has a single 1 digit with a value of 4, so its number is 4. But this column has 2 of the 1 digits with values of 1 and 4, so the total number is 5. Here we have ones with values of 2 and 4 for a total of 6. And here we have 3 ones with the values of 1, 2, and 4 for a total of 7. Now for this number they did something very interesting. Instead of showing a value of 8 with a dot in this row, they have a dot at the start of the next column and a corresponding 1 digit above it. They did that in order to show how dots for very large numbers do not have to be in a single column, and that additional dots can be continued in subsequent columns. So, the 1 digit in this column with zeros in the first column indicate a total number of 8. In these two columns, we have a value of 8 plus 1 for a total number of 9. And in these columns, we have a value of 8 plus 2 for a total number of 10. You can now see how the numbers of 1 through 10 can be represented by dots and spaces. Larger numbers can also be represented in this same way. This dot pattern appears just below the numbering dots. This row of dots represent the starting points for these columns of dots. They indicate the numbers of 1, 6, 7, 8, and 15. When you look these numbers up in the periodic table of elements, you find that they represent the atomic numbers for hydrogen,